Friends, Pope Benedict memorably said, the church does three essential things. And this has just stayed in my mind ever since I read it, because it's so clarifying. The three essential things church does: it evangelizes, it worships God, and it cares for the poor.
Single largest 1 month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Woe to the complacent in Zion. Zion, so Jerusalem, those who are in top leadership positions in the capital. Leadership positions in the capital.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session.
Woe to the complacent in Zion, lying on beds of ivory, stretched comfortably on their couches. He's not pulling any punches. He's naming things pretty clearly here, isn't he? You know, and those of us, I'll include myself, who live, a fairly comfortable life, do we find ourselves challenged by these words?
Life is imbued with irony. Sometimes the hero looks like the villain in this world. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I don't know if you're like me, but I wanted to get to the bottom of why Representative Al Green interrupted Trump while he was addressing Congress the other day. So Representative Green caused quite a scene, as we just saw, and was escorted out of Congress and will face sanctions for his actions. He disrupted the order. Here is an explanation for why he did what he did.
This is the White House.
Hi, Congressman. What were you shouting to the president, sir? Sir, what were you shouting to the president?
The president said he had a mandate. And I was making it clear to the president that he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. I have people who are very fearful. These are poor people, and they have only Medicaid in their lives when it comes to their health care. And I want him to know that his budget calls for deep cuts in Medicaid. He needs to save Medicaid, protect it. We need to raise the cap on Social Security. There's a possibility that it's going to be hurt, and we've got to protect Medicare. These are the safety net programs that people in my congressional district depend on. And this president seems to care less about them and more about the number of people that he can remove from the various programs that have been so helpful to so many people.
Is yelling during his speech the best way to get that across?
It is the best way to get it across to a person who uses his incivility against our civility. He is a person who has consistently been used incivility against civility.
So do you have no mandate? Is that what you said?
Well, look, I'm willing to suffer whatever punishment is available to me. I didn't say to anyone, don't punish me. I've said I'll accept the punishment, but it's worth it to let people know that there are some of us who are going to stand up against this president's desire to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security.
So were you saying you have no mandate? Is that what you told him?
That's what he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. None.
Is the only punishment that you were kicked out, sir? Is there something?
I don't know. Whatever the punishment is, I'm not fighting the punishment. This is about the people who are being punished by virtue of losing their health care. This is the richest country in the world, and we have people who don't have good health care. We've got to do better. And now we're about to cut Medicaid, which is for poor people. Health care has become wealth care for many people, and we can't afford to let that happen.
Is that the only thing that you're protesting?
No, I have other things I'm protesting. And I'm also working on my articles of impeachment. This president is unfit. He should not hold the office. 34 felony convictions, 2 times impeached.
Sir, tell me one more time what you were shouting in the chamber.
That he has no mandate to cut Medicaid.
That's what you were saying over and
Yes.
over. Thank you, sir.
Yes, no mandate. Thank you, all of you.
This leads to an interesting question for all of us Christians. Who's right? Should Trump cut governmental aid to the society's needy? Or is Green right in that the richest country in the world should provide health care to its citizens? This is a classic WWJD question. What would Jesus do? Let's watch this clip of Bishop Barron and let me know what you think about his response in the comments below.
Those three things. Think of all the institutions, all the expressions of ecclesial life. They fall under one of those three rubrics. And in fact, an entire ecclesiology, I think, can be constructed from that insight. Notice first how they're all related to each other. Each one leads to the other, and that's talk for another day. I think it's interesting the last three popes, I think, hit one of these three especially. Look at John Paul II. Evangelization was so key to him. Now, the other two as well. I mean, no one doubts that. But if there was a focus of John Paul II, it was on the evangelization. Pope Benedict, I would say it was on the worship of God. He was very concerned about the integrity of the liturgy. The other two as well, of course, for him. And then with Pope Francis, I think pretty clearly it's care for the poor. You know, from the beginning of his papacy, it's been a hallmark of his teaching and his practice. Again, with him too, the other two are present, but I think there's an emphasis that's pretty clear in each one, and that's okay. So it's been up and down the centuries of the church's life. Maybe one or the other of these three gets emphasized. Remember, it was Cardinal Hummus of Brazil, who they say right after the election of Pope Francis went up to his friend and he said, "No te olvides de los pobres." Don't forget the poor. And Pope Francis said that has stayed in his mind and heart ever since. He wants a poor church on behalf of the poor. I mean, all of that is very important to him. And in doing this, of course, he's not inventing some novelty. It's right in this great tradition of the church that stretches back across the centuries. From a Mother Teresa of Calcutta to a Vincent de Paul to Dorothy Day to Martin de Porres to Peter Claver, Francis of Assisi, John Chrysostom, Ambrose of Milan. I mean, up and down history. You can find examples of the church caring for the poor. And where does it all come from ultimately? From the Bible. I mentioned last week how the Bible is almost unique in the way it calls to account political and economic leadership. It's skeptical of leaders who now use their power to abuse others. The critical eye of the prophets, that's a very unique thing. Well, we've been reading now from the prophet Amos, and of all the great prophets, you know, it's true in Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, the rest of them, but maybe especially so in Amos, which is why, as I mentioned last week, Martin Luther King was so enamored of him. Amos is maybe the strongest at calling out those who oppress the poor. Listen to him now from our reading today, and try not to be deeply challenged by this language. Woe to the complacent in Zion, so Jerusalem, those who are in top leadership positions in the capital. Woe to the complacent in Zion, lying on beds of ivory, stretched comfortably on their couches, improvising to the music of the harp like David. They devise their own accompaniment. He's not pulling any punches. I mean, he's naming things pretty clearly here, isn't he? You know, and those of us, I'll include myself, who live, you know, a fairly comfortable life, do we find ourselves challenged by these words? Yeah, I do. You know, let's face it, probably most people listening to me right now, you know, we live pretty materially comfortable lives. Are we aware of those around us who are suffering from hunger, nakedness, homelessness? Are we like the complacent in Zion, lying comfortably on our couches? And then Amos goes on. If you think, okay, that's enough critique for one moment. No, he goes on. They drink wine from bowls and anoint themselves with the best oils. They are not made ill by the collapse of Joseph. So the first one, they drink wine from bowls. Just that image, you know, not sipping from a little glass, but drinking wine from a bowl. It just seems a little bit decadent, doesn't it? You know, people that eat and drink too much, and let's be honest about it, that's true for a lot of us. When there are people starving, and many of us eat and drink, you know, too much. anoint themselves with the best oils. How much money do we spend on our own, self-care? How dominant that is in our society today. Think of, just go in your medicine cabinet or go into your bathroom. How many little, ointments and things like that do you have? Well, how important is that, especially when there are a lot of people that are suffering? Then the last one, we're probably going to miss it, but they're not made ill by the collapse of Joseph. What he's talking about there is the collapse of Israel in the north. So here they are, the complacent in Zion, and yet their own brothers are being invaded, overwhelmed, attacked, and they're doing nothing about it. They're so self-preoccupied, so self-indulgent. Are we aware of these great injustices? As I record these words now, wars all over the world, people being persecuted, people being killed, their homes blown to smithereens. Am I aware of these outrages as I stretch out comfortably on my couch, as I drink wine from bowls, as I anoint myself with the finest ointments? It's meant to bug us, everybody, this language. It's meant to bug us.
To conclude, I just want us to reflect upon the first clips and ask ourselves, which one of these men sound more like Amos? Which one of these individuals is acting more like Christ? I think it's pretty clear, and the picture painted in Congress that day is that Representative Green was the villain. I think we can all agree with that. But was he? Remember, everybody, our world is ironic. We live in a world that God himself ended up on a criminal's cross. In the same way they mocked and crucified the Savior, perhaps that is a more fitting reality to what happened to the man who stood up for the poor in Congress that solemn day in that pagan political office building. Anyways, I'm going to leave that up for you to decide. I'll let you be the judge. Remember, Christianity is Christ, and without him, there is no Christianity. See you in the next one. Peace.